9. Anthony Moyles is with us. Anthony, good morning to you.
Gents, how are we?
How was your weekend?
Yeah. I felt sorry for you, Ger, I have to say. I felt sorry for you sitting here. Colin Covers, he couldn't, the unbridled joy was coming from every orifice.
It was just a great weekend of sport, actually. That's all.
Yeah, Alan was doing his best to try to stay as measured as he could, but I could feel,
Schadenfreude is a bitch, Colin. You better be careful with it. That's all
I've
I'm
had
going to say.
plenty of it. Manchester United supporter, for example.
I'm going to say, Manchester United.
You know what I mean?
I support the biggest, most richest club in the world. It's terrible.
Cork GA in general. So,
My issue is, and I said it over the weekend, it's like people jumping up and down, and it's brilliant for O'Gara, yeah, but that's it. It's O'Gara, okay, Donncha Ryan, and Ulsan Delan. That is it. That, as far as our relationship with La Rochelle goes, that is it. And when it comes to the World Cup, those three fellas aren't really involved. No. So now we have a team that possibly is 12 or 13 of the team that'll be on the Irish team.
Sizable, yeah.
And by the way, that is a massive chink in the armour. If I'm New Zealand, France, whoever else, Scotland, I'm thinking, you know what? There's something we didn't expect.
It's just a few left over, like Peter O'Mahony, Bundyaki, Mac Hansen, not involved.
That's it.
Do you know what I mean? Like, it's very few.
Tyg Byrne is the one that you really miss from that Leinster side. But,
but it's it's a worry. But it was funny. I was saying it on Friday. I actually said it in the office. I said, I don't think Leinster are going to win this game. Just things were just all being it's always the same, and it goes back to, I know we're going to shout about Gaelic obviously sometime, but you go back to that Mayo Roscommon game, which seems like about 4 months ago now.
Well,
similar type of situation. If you remember coming into that game, Mayo were odds on, playing great football, doing all the right things. McStay was on saying this was his ideal job. The backroom team was being spoken about, and bang, the rubber hits the road. Now, can they learn like Mayo learn?
I mean, I hope that Ireland can. I mean, in fairness, so last year the same thing happened to Leinster, and then they had a pretty good summer test series. So we shall see. Speaking of Mayo, right?
Yeah.
We were having conversations last week. There's a division of opinion. I do think these games are really meaningful and really matter, and the whole point of this is like bringing the football carnival around the country. There was a carnival in Sligo. There's a carnival in Killarney, and it really matters to Mayo that they go down there and they smash Kerry. Like that, I think, is a signature performance. And look, it doesn't mean they're going to, but they're going to believe everything now that everybody in the backroom team says about tactics, about hard work, about everything that they said would happen in the Kerry game. I suspect came through for them, and they're big signature moments in a season.
Absolutely, and the 6 weeks or so that they've had, obviously, to prepare for this. There's always a worry when you're part of a management team in that you're saying, okay, we're going to go this way, we're going to hang our hat on this. Yes, you'll have some scenarios where, okay, possibly if this doesn't go right, we'll do this. But you're by and large, you are going down the route of playing to a certain emphasis. And if that doesn't go right, it doesn't go right, and that's just it. And of course, if it does go right, and go back to the Leinster thing, like a point or two either side, and of course it doesn't mean that everything was wrong and it should be all thrown out. There's loads of good things in there, but you can imagine what they did. I think they were away. They said they gave 2 weeks off to go back to the clubs, and then they went away on a bit of a training camp. So all of the focus was obviously on the run in, the panel, and obviously that Kerry game, like a 28-year unbeaten. Like that's a serious record to go down. Like that matters to Kerry.
40 matches, like.
Yeah, and I think Jack O'Connor, I know we're flipping a bit, but I think Kerry walked into it a little bit sleepily, and I think we can get to this in a few minutes about the provincials, whether they're a hindrance or not. But certainly Mayo said, right, we are revived, we are refreshed, our energies are through the roof, and we are going to go out with pace, ability, size, and also not a lack of tactics, obviously, and awareness of what we're trying to do, especially around Aidan O'Shea and their half forwards and half backs. And I think they had the right team on the pitch. I think they've brought some good under 20s in, guys who actually aren't just carrying the ball, but who actually will pose a threat as cornerbacks or half backs.
And they've strengthened depth now.
Oh, they've strengthened depth. I was looking at the guys they bring on. Like, they bring on McLaughlin, they bring on Durkin, they bring on fellas that are saying, well, I'll see this game out for you for 15, 20 minutes. I'm not just another coming in. And you know what? They fully deserved that win. And they possibly could have won it by more. Now, I know Kerry had a good few chances in the second half. They had 1 or 2 goal chances. But the game should have been out and out of the gap. They could have been 10 or 11 points up at half time.
Is the win not more impressive because they were out of match sharpness? Or is it more understandable because they had a rest?
It's probably a bit of both, in the sense of, match sharpness. They've obviously had the same league, and they went on and they pushed on all through that. I think they probably did need a break, Colm. I think they needed, obviously mentally, they needed a break to kind of reset. But
we did say that there's a world in which the best thing that can happen is for you to go out early and you have this break, that you get another mini pre-season. Like, we had that conversation with Brady, and he was making the point that, like, look, the day after the game, or the minutes after the game, I won't say it's a good thing, but the day after I'll probably wake up and go, yeah, fair enough, it doesn't really matter. Like, when you think about it, they started the league at a lung busting rate because they wanted to embed new practice, new culture.
Correct.
And then and they saw that through, and as you say, they walked into the buzzsaw. Like, Roscommon, literally the old long grass cliche is designed for games like that, and then they're in the long grass.
And they're in the long grass a long time, though. I'm surprised that they came out so positively, because who would have forgotten, muscle memory-wise, about a game?
I think so, but I think what they have,
played a lot of challenges.
They did, and they have belief, right? And Mayo people, you don't have to confidence is not an issue, okay? So that's there. Whether it should be there, or whether
Mayo
it shouldn't
people,
be there.
Confidence is not an issue. Is the heading of
Listen, my people are from Mayo, so I'm okay in saying that. I spent most of my summers on Ballycastle Beach getting the legs ripped off me by the sand, so nice. I'm okay on that front. I can take the arrows, but I tell you what they're doing, and what I really felt. Well, there's two things. Kerry were poor, and people will realise, the Kerry forward line. Kerry have a massive issue in that the forward line are forwards, and that might sound a ridiculous statement, but Mayo said, well, you guys aren't going to follow us, and a lot of teams go out to contain Kerry. And Mayo said, you're going to get your scores, that's fair enough, but we're going to get plenty of scores down the far end.
Right.
And they focused on Clifford, they focused on Brosnan, they focused on Gainey, and they focused on turning them and sending them the other way. And they're not going to do that. Clifford, Gainey, they're not going to run 70, 80 yards into their own defence. They might do it once or twice, but they're not going to do it 10 or 12 times during the game. And most of the issues, people will focus around the midfield and say, they were cleaned at midfield, which they were cleaned at midfield. But Mayo have big bodies, mobile men all across that half forward and half back line. And they have fellas now in their full back line, which they didn't really have in the league, because they had it last year. Do you remember, like Keegan, guys who would go?
Yeah.
Like O'Hara came up and got a great score, fisted it over the bar, even though he was on Clifford. And you didn't really see that in the league. The full back line were kind of in situ. They weren't taking those runs. But now they've just said, right, we're just going to focus on our strengths. And I think that's the big thing with Mayo. They're going, focus on ourselves. Yes, we tip the hat to the opposition, of course, but we're really going to focus on ourselves and our potency. And they are potent.
Yeah, bookmakers have reacted very quickly. Dublin are now the favourites to win the All-Ireland. Kerry are second favourites. Dublin are 2-1, Kerry are 3-1. Mayo are now in as short as 9-2. I don't know what they were before the game at the weekend, but that's a hardening of that price. It's really important, actually, because Mayo will now more than likely beat Louth and beat Cork. You would expect them to win those two games. One of those games at home, one of those games neutral venue, and that will make them top seeds straight through to an All-Ireland quarter-final, where they now get the teams who finish second, who come through those other.
Yes.
Whereas Kerry are now going to be facing Derry or Dublin, or there's one here I'm just missing. I had it there in front of me a second ago, or Galway in an All-Ireland quarter-final.
Yeah,
I mean, that's not
easy.
Having come through the previous match, they're going to have so it'll be again.
And they don't get a break, isn't that correct?
High intensity,
or maybe one. Yeah, it is high intensity. So it's not like. I felt Kerry slept. I thought they slept walk into it. I thought they were. It just shows you the provincials, because you go and you just win them, and you're kind of like, right. But like literally, it looked like the provincials were. Actually, the provincials even look below the league, if you know what I mean. The provincials look like an O'Byrne Cup, or it looks like a pre-season competition. And if you kind of go through that and you're straight in, well, actually, that's completely the wrong thing to do, because you saw it. Like, I mean, they were so far off.
What did Kerry find out about themselves in the game?
The Clare match is a waste of time, like.
Complete waste of time. And again, what it does is it probably just gives you delusions of grandeur, and it brings you into a situation where you say, oh, we're in a good place here. Because all you can do, by the way, is, even as a management team, is look at what's on offer. So you're looking at the evidence, you're going, we're moving well here, we're nice patterns of play, and we spoke about this, what they were trying to do against Clare, they were kind of changing it up a bit. But next thing you come against a team, and Jack O'Connor said, they were about 4 levels above them, and they weren't able to get to that point. At certain times they were. And by the way, you take Clifford out of that game, and Kerry are in all sorts of ball.
Like, geez, you could argue that the Clare final was a glorified training session, right? So they come up with basically little systems themselves to keep themselves interested in the game. You could argue that Mayo's preparation was actually higher with their own training than Kerry against Clare.
And challenge matches.
Exactly.
And challenge
you can go and play challenge matches against good teams, and you can pick whatever you want, and you can do 20 minutes and like whatever,
Correct.
I don't know, I've no information about that, but I do know that they were playing challenge matches.
Yeah.
And like
and they're playing challenge matches more than likely against motivated teams.
Yeah.
If you get me.
Oh,
teams who have either been knocked down and feel, I've a bit of an axe to grind. I'm going to push on.
Kildare Monaghan, I heard mentioned.
Yeah, I heard that too. Yeah. So it probably puts Kerry. Look, I don't think Kerry will be fine. They still have enough.
That's the thing, like, yeah.
But my issue is how open they looked. Like, morally, from a solid point of view, like, they were exposed so badly in that first half.
Yeah.
As I said, they should have had 3 goals.
You'd expect their brains trust of Paddy Talley and Micheál Quirk to be able to put that right over the course of And again, they'll play Cork and they'll play Louth, so they're going to be grand.
Yeah.
And more than likely they finish second, but it just means more games. Now, maybe this Kerry team needs loads of games to just get back to the level that they were at last year, and they'll be fine, because they're like, the basis of that team is still a very young side, and it's not like them getting to Croke Park is going to be a knock on them. So I'm not writing them off, but they've just made life much more difficult, and that's why this format, for all its problems, at least has something like this that can happen.
I think this is a great format. I know people were bemoaning the fact, the championship is starting without a whimper, but I thought it was a fantastic game.
Yeah.
Galway, Tyrone, I think what you can find maybe in the games, and I felt this in the Galway-Tyrone game, especially when Burns was sent off, Tyrone kind of came at it, but Galway kind of, like, to use the boxing analogy, they just kept them just beyond reach. They weren't doing enough. And I think that's a chink in Galway as well. We've spoken about this, that lack of killer instinct. Like, Tyrone didn't score for 28 minutes in that game. 28 minutes. And in that spell, basically Tyrone were down to 13 men, because they had Burns sent off and Morgan was gone with a black card. And Galway consistently just kept the ball going around, playing the ball across it, instead of saying, Jesus, here is an opportunity for us, like a la rugby, where the opposition are down to 14. Right, we make hay here.
Yeah.
We know what we have to do. Going for 1-4, 1-5, 1-6, really tried to bury them and make the second half a complete, just roll on the subs and just kind of see it through. But instead, very lacklustre. And I think Joyce is in the situation as well.
Is there a possibility Tyrone aren't that bad, though?
Oh no, Tyrone are improving. And I think if Burns hadn't been sent off, it was the right call. I think they would have been a lot closer, and they possibly could have even picked Galway's pocket. Tyrone are coming. The midfield is very powerful. They're starting to get their forward line looking better. Their defensive situation is a little bit more solid.
They won't mind the extra games.
Not a chance. Okay. I think they're coming.
Just one question here, on Galway from Ronan O'Reilly on YouTube. Their bench looks light in comparison to other contenders.
Well, if I was sitting there on a Monday morning and the three of us are sitting down and we're saying, right, of the teams that are in there over the weekend, the squad depth is what we spoke about before, massive. And for me, Mayo's squad depth now, what they have done, and this is what the 6 weeks allows you to. When you're rolling from week to week to week, what ends up happening is the guys in the squad are finding it very difficult to put their hand up, because a Tuesday night is basically a run through, so is a Thursday. So it's very hard to get a bolter out of the pack. But when you have 6 weeks, you can go away to training camp. All of a sudden you're looking at an under 20 and you're going, Jesus, this lad has something. Let's try this fella. But But my point is, we're going back to the, we'll go back to the trough. Well, he's not a bad player. He'll do a job for us. Whereas Mayo are able to say, well, actually, hold on a second, and change it up.
Group isn't handy. They've got Armagh in Westmeath, so you'd expect them to beat Westmeath. The Armagh game is obviously going to be a big game for them to decide exactly where everybody finishes in that one. On the other side, on the flip side, Clare get beaten at home by Donegal in the first game in Group 4. That was the one they had to target. That was the one they had to win. They're the bottom of a table which has Derry and Monaghan in it as well, and you would fear for what those results are going to be for Clare in the rest of the competition. And on the other side, Sligo managed to come back from 3 points down with 68 minutes on the clock to get a draw against Kildare. One of the Kildare GA Twitter accounts pointing out that Sligo are still the only county that Kildare have no senior victory over in their history.
Well, there's a stat.
What?
Yeah. There's the stat. Well, I think people are giving out because I think 7 minutes were played in extra time when it was meant to be additionally meant to be 5. But it just shows you the Jekyll and Hyde nature of Kildare a bit, to go out what they did against Dublin but Sligo weren't bad. Sligo were there on merit in the Connacht final and all that stuff. I thought actually from what I could hear, and I spoke to a couple of people who were at the Clare game. Clare literally threw that game away. Now Donegal got a handle on it eventually, but they had opportunities to really drive it home. And instead they didn't, and Donegal came back. I don't know what that does for Donegal's belief, to be honest with you. It might be just a plaster over the cracks, but you would fear for what's going to come in the back of that.
But they're through to a preliminary quarter final, basically.
100%.
They live to fight another day. All right, Anthony, good stuff.
Cheers,
thanks a million.